Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Ken here. And today we're going to talk about how to sell anything to anybody online. So the big question is this: how is a tiny percentage of entrepreneurs blow the pack away? What are they doing that we're not? I asked myself that question for 10 years. I was failing forward and getting sick of it. I wanted to build a coaching business, but couldn't make any headway. So I started studying. I realized that the world's most elite marketers, entrepreneurs, and gurus were all using the same 4-step system. I call it the authority factor. On the show, I'm going to prove to you that the authority factor worked for them and it'll work for you. My name is Ken Dunn. Let's get started. I'm really excited about getting into this talk with you guys. There's a lot of information that we're going to cover today. And for me to make this easy for you, I'm actually going to share my screen and pull up the chalkboard here so we can draw some concepts out. But I want to talk to you today about exactly how to sell anything to anybody. And frankly speaking, if you master this framework, the understanding of it, how it actually works, this is going to work for webinars. This is going to work for sales pages. This is going to actually kind of help you to build long form sales pages online. I mean, you name it. And this strategy actually took me years to figure out it, because it's one sales presentation for everything. I mean, you guys know the story. I literally struggled for about 6 years before I made my very first sale in my coaching business. And I didn't start selling anything to anybody until I started hiring the right coaches. And the two things happened when I started hiring coaches. You guys, some of you guys know this already. Number one, I learned all the skills that I have today, and now I get a chance to teach it to everybody else. But the other thing that happened is I started watching what they were doing. And I would encourage you to do the exact same thing. If you ever hire a coach, if you ever jump into any community whatsoever, I want you to do two things. I want you to learn whatever it is you're paying to learn. But secondly, I want you to watch the way the teacher teaches. And I did that. I started doing that. And I literally started documenting exactly how Russell Brunson, who I've paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to and don't regret paying a dime with him, how he teaches, Dean Graziosi, Brendan Burchard, John Maxwell, who I paid all these guys tons and tons of money. And I found that they all basically followed the exact same 4 steps to get where they are today. Started off by them building themselves, then building their following, then building their list, then focusing on their income. Once the list was growing, the money started flowing. Oh, there's a good one for later. But I want to get into detail today because, in addition to that, as I started diving deeper, I realized that selling online, it's all about you telling your story. It's the power of storytelling. And how do you tell a story in a way that captivates the people that are listening to you and makes them want to stay engaged with you, and then makes them want to buy from you? And what you're going to love about it is I pull up my chalkboard here. Let me just go ahead and do this. Again, if you're listening to this on the podcast and you want to actually see the chalkboard and what I'm doing with all of my doodlings, then just go ahead and click the link that's in the show's notes here. It'll take you over to YouTube and you can check it out. You can watch this whole thing again there with that. All right, so let's jump right into this. And I want to go over some basics with you first, because this is really important. If you're going to sell anything to anybody, the very first thing that you have to do is take a close look at what you're selling. The thing. And this is going to fall back into what the actual technique for selling in a minute. But the very first thing that I think that a lot of new entrepreneurs and a lot of new online coaches make a mistake, one of the very first mistakes, is when they're coming up with that thing, when they're starting to really deep dive on what's that thing that they want to sell. The challenge that they have, and you might have experienced this because I certainly did. By the time you get to a point where you're ready to sell things to other people, you've gone through a significant amount in your life. And those things you've gone through, those milestones, those epiphanies, those failures, they shape you. they also leave a lifelong impression in your mind. And so when you get to the point where other people are paying attention to you and they want to buy something from you, it is very natural for you to want to name that thing something related to what you went through. I can tell you, there, like, one that comes to mind right away. Several years ago, I had a student jump into one of my programs, and he was building a program around helping people with their mindsets. And he was impacted by a book by Brian Tracy called Eat That Frog. So much so that he named his course, the product he was selling, and what he started talking about, eating the frog. And he struggled trying to sell it. And it was that name that changed everything, that hurt him. So all we did, the only thing we did different in his entire program, is we changed the name. And we went from eating the frog to three steps to blocking negative thoughts. It was the exact same product. It was the exact same product. Everything he was doing the same. He just changed what he was calling it and what he was pitching it as, from eating the frog to 3 steps to blocking negative thoughts. And the business exploded. So the point, the moral to that story for you is, make sure that whatever you're naming in your branding, in your marketing, whatever you're doing to attract people to it, you have to, what's the point? You've got to call out the challenge. So ask yourself right up front, what's the thing you're going to help them to fix? And identify that right away, and make sure that thing is centerpiece in everything that you're talking about. Now, one little tip I want to give you, when you're calling out the challenge, specifically how to figure that out, ask yourself, what are my ideal clients thinking? Because some of you are going to be, like, even calling out the challenge, you're going to be so impacted by the journey you've been on, you're still going to struggle with it. But the litmus test is, if the challenge that you're calling out, which is going to force you to come up with the right name and everything else, if it also addresses what your ideal clients are thinking, what's on their mind, what are they saying? So a really neat little exercise to go through. Think about your ideal client scrolling on Facebook, trying to ignore the things that aren't going right in their life, the things they need help with. What are they normally saying? I wish I could lose 30 pounds. I need to get these negative thoughts out of my mind. How can I get these negative thoughts out of my mind? I got to find more clients. That's why. And what you'll notice in this idea is, if you go out to the internet now and you look at what your peers or your competitors are actually saying, the ones that are successful are going to be doing it this way. Okay, so now we know how to name the thing, because that's super important. Now let's talk about these 3 steps. There's 3 steps that you want to follow. And this is your basic idea. 3 steps for selling. It's really simple. It's so simple. The number 1, you've got to introduce the concept. You got to hook them, Dano. Number 2, you have to tell a story. That's your epiphany bridge. Let me just draw that out so I can read it. EPIPHANY. We'll say epiphany story. And number 3, it's the actual teaching. You want to teach them something. You want to walk them through the actual concept. Now, just on that for a second, I got to tell you, most people are nervous about doing this and they get really confused because they think that if I'm teaching people anything, why would they want to buy something from me? Get that out of your mind already. The number one reason people want to buy is they want to be closer to you. They want your help in doing the thing. But there is a point to teaching, though, that I got to go over with you really quickly, and then I'll come back to it. You have to teach what, not how. And if you do these three things right, then it will naturally lead to an offer. So friends, what you're thinking, what we're talking about right there, those three steps. First, you got to hook them. That's with the name. That's with the introduction. Second, you got to have a story. You got to tell a story first. You know the old saying, facts tell, stories sell. And then you jump into the teaching. Those are the 3 points: introduction or hook, story, and then the teaching. You can see that I'm influenced by one of my dearest friends and most important mentors in my life. His name is Russell Brunson. And Russell came up with a concept called hook, story, point. And essentially what I'm talking to you about right now is just a little bit of a deviation on that. All right, let's talk about the hook first. We talked about it earlier. The hook needs to be directly related to the challenge. What is the challenge that people are going through? Now, again, just don't make the mistake of naming what you're doing or the thought you put into their minds, something that is related to. Remember my little story at the beginning of my client who named his program Eating the Frog because he was impacted by a book. All he did was change the name of the program that he was pitching, and he started generating significant amounts of revenue. Now, the story, this is your epiphany. So what you want to do is take the time to figure out, of all the stories you have, what is the one story that you can point to that was kind of like the epiphany, the breakthrough, the change everything moment, where you realized not just that why things were going wrong, but also how do you fix them? And you tell that story. And then in the teaching part, you got to teach what, not how. Now, there's a technique to this, and unfortunately, this is another stumbling block that a lot of people have, and why they don't sell online. What they're doing is when you get into teaching a concept to somebody, your person, your potential student, your prospect who's listening to what you're saying, they don't have the bandwidth or the ability to stay focused long enough if you taught them how to do it. What you want to do in a concept like this, if you're going to use this technique, is teach them what it is. Now, the easiest way in the world for you to actually teach something and not get confused yourself is by having a framework for what you're doing. In other words, writing out what you're doing first so that it's easy for you to refer to and it's easy for people to remember. And if you take a look at frameworks, you see people using them all around you. You hear 3 secrets, you hear 4 points, you hear all these different ways that people talk about their frameworks, but that's what it really comes down to. Keep your teaching part to 3 or 4 points. Biggest reasons: number 1, they can remember easier. If you have 3 bullet points or 4 bullet points to what you do, they're going to remember easier. Number 2, keeping what you're doing to 3 or 4 points, wrapping it all into 3 or 4 simple points, there is a subconscious trigger that goes along with that. And the subconscious trigger is, if you tell people that this whole thing can be learned in as simple as 3 secrets, then what subconsciously hits them is the fact that your system is simple. It's going to be easy for them to do. So if you think about when I'm teaching people how to build a coaching business, I say it's really simple. It's 4 steps. It's a 4-step system. Build yourself, build your following, build your income, and then build your list, and then build your income. It's that simple. See, friends, if you follow this technique, and this is the framework for a webinar, this is the framework for a any type of sales page, you make sure that you go through. If you're doing a long form sales page and you're using this system, it's simple. You start off at the top of the page with the hook, then before the fold. So if you're looking at a standard sales page, you know that some of these sales pages go on forever, right? Well, if it's a standard sales page, let me go back and just draw this in here for you. Again, if you guys want to see what I'm drawing, just check out the YouTube video, because it's all on the YouTube video. So what's going to happen is, in a standard sales page, you're going to have your headline at the top. That's your hook. And then right below that, you're going to have a video. And you guys know what the term above the fold means, right? Above the fold is that imaginary line. The fold is that imaginary line that is your computer screen. So everything that you see above the bottom of your computer screen, which is called the fold, is above the fold. And the other thing you want to put above the fold is the teaching points. So just summarize the 3 secrets, 1, 2, 3. If you're doing a webinar, same thing applies, right? It's the overview. So on your webinar, you're going to have your hook. You might have a little video, but you're definitely above the fold. You have to have some type of reference to the story, and then the 3 points. It's what makes a great webinar sales page. That's why all this stuff works. If you follow this system for building any product you're selling, for the selling part of it, your sales will start to flow in, plain and simple. Hey friends, it's Ken. Thanks for being here with me today. Listen, if you enjoyed the show, make sure you follow it. You know what? Like, I'm going to promise to give you amazing content all the time. You just have to hit that subscribe button, hit that follow button, put my content in your life, and I guarantee you're going to save yourself a lot of time and trouble. Hey, and on that topic, if you're following me, you're a coach, a consultant, you're somebody that wants to build an online business, helping other people accomplish something you've already done. And I want to give you the fast track. I've been studying the art of building an online coaching business for 20 years, and I've invested millions of dollars with some of the biggest coaches in the world. And you know what I found? They were all following the exact same system. It's a framework that I call the authority factor. It's a 4-step system that I want to share with you. And if you follow this system, I can't even begin to tell you what the future has in store for you. But I can promise you this one thing: you're going to get paid helping others. So go to authorityfactor.info. I put the information in the notes below. It's an amazing online live workshop that I'm doing right now. And I'm going to show you exactly how to build a coaching business the fastest way possible, with the most revenue, and avoiding the most mistakes.